Cartographers in the past have always been focused on getting people from point A to point B. The maps were built for people who were explorers. People were traveling from one country to another on a ship, and they needed a map to guide them. But if you look at what has happened over the last few years, all of us actually have become explorers. We may not be navigating the world in terms of going on a ship for 6 months and discovering new worlds, but we are trying to discover these micro worlds around us.
Google Maps is really, if you think about it, it's mapping for the modern era.
The old maps were paper, they were flat, they got folded up and stuffed into your glove box. These days a map is dynamic, it's live, it's interactive, and it's personalized to you, so it gives you customized things like directions from where you are to where you want to go.
When we came out with Google Maps, it was a technology that really had not existed before. You don't have to click and wait to have the map pan. It's like you just drag it and move it around on a web browser. People had never seen that before.
We called it a Slippy map, but it was really the highly responsive nature that let people interact with it, and this really changed how people used maps. And then when we added satellite imagery, this gave people a reason to visit places they'd never been before, just so they could see them for the first time.
And we add Street View that really gives you that sense of familiarity for places that you are going to visit or may visit.
Street View was, in fact, Larry Page's idea. The notion was that there was a lot of interesting information and imagery taken at street level, and he thought that it might be interesting to put cameras on cars, drive around, and then organize this information. It turned out to be quite difficult. We developed our own cameras, and we've been able to actually improve on this platform substantially. At this point in the project, we have a number of platforms for capturing imagery. The most common, of course, is the cars. We also have now snowmobiles. We have the tricycle. The tricycle we in fact put on boats and trains. And recently took Street View technology into some caves. So we're trying to go everywhere.
The trick that Google has is that we do a great job of stitching it all together and producing one giant picture of the whole planet that you can zoom in and out of seamlessly.
And our goal is really to build a very dynamic map that is changing as the world changes around it. So we, in 2008, launched a product called Google Map Maker. It allows you as a user to edit and contribute map data to Google.
We really rely on our users to help us improve our maps. If a local business closes, it's the people who live down the street who are going to know that first, and we can make sure that change is reflected for everybody.
Maps on the phone has always been something that we wanted to do. It's one of those things that are obvious. One big part of when you walk out the door is knowing where you are and knowing where you're going.
Google Maps on Android, for instance, has turn-by-turn driving navigation, which is really helpful.
But most of us spend most of our time actually in buildings and not outside buildings. So in the mapping space, we've been instrumental in making indoor maps work.
We were able to map hundreds of shopping malls and businesses in the United States and in Japan.
And the hope is that at some point in the near future, every single public space in the United States and the entire world is mapped, and you can localize yourself very accurately when you walk with your handset inside those buildings.
It's pretty amazing to take out my phone out of my pocket and say, this is it. This is what we were dreaming about 10, 12 years ago.
We've come a long way in modeling the world, but the reality is we have a long way to go. Where we're really going, and it may sound crazy, is that we want to rebuild the whole world in 3D. And we're constantly innovating to make that a reality. For example, we're now developing technology that allows us to model entire 3D cities from high-resolution aerial imagery. This will not only make our 3D coverage even more comprehensive, but it will allow us to build a more realistic and immersive mirror world. Obviously, building a map for the modern age is a giant task, but it's one that we're really committed to and we're making great progress on.